Welcome back. We are so glad you could join us today. We are completing the end of the first part of our series where we are considering foundational scriptures. And if you're accessing this through social, please consider showing you value this conversation by liking or subscribing. Now today we're covering Philippians 4:8, which tells us what to focus on when we cast down imaginations and renew our minds. When Paul wrote to the church in Philippi, he handed them a cheat sheet for their minds, a clear strategy for what to focus on and how to direct their thoughts. But the Philippians were not just another church, they were deeply loyal supporters, and they were likely distressed considering the difficulties that Paul faced. And so Paul, from a prison cell, wrote to them and said, "Do not be anxious about anything, and the peace of God will guard your heart and your minds." That passage deserves its own episode. But let's move forward to the template Paul gave them. Philippians 4:8. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, noble, are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of a good report, if there's any virtue and anything that's praiseworthy, meditate or think on these things. Now, this might sound like a lot of niceness or positivity, but let's break down what Paul was actually saying. True, noble, just, pure, lovely, and good report. Excellent and praiseworthy. And then we have the concept of think or meditate. So we'll begin with think, and it means to reckon, to run the numbers, to consider, to take inventory, or to draw a conclusion. It's decisive, it's not passive, and it's certainly not drifting. It's a deliberate act of focus. Now, it's important to note that in the second part of our series, we'll cover topics of science, and this includes the brain's tendency towards prediction. But what's most important here is simply slowing down and being aware of the thoughts that we are experiencing. And then the second idea is that even though we experience a thought, we can make a choice about it. Now, let's move through the categories, beginning with true. This is not just the opposite of false, but it is what cannot be hidden, what is tested, verified, or authentic. Truth in this context is undeniable reality, the kind that holds up under pressure. It's what aligns with God. It's consistent with His character. The next word is noble or honorable. The word here carries a sense of venerable, something or someone worthy of deep respect. It's not about politeness or status, but it's a moral weight. It's the kind of thinking that shapes your character. It asks you to consider your values and whether your actions reflect those values, because what you revere, you will eventually reflect. To think on what is honorable is to pay tribute to what deserves reverence, and this holds us to a standard to treat others with dignity, even in our thinking. And this is the opposite of focusing on the utility of others, how they may serve us or benefit or bring us pleasure. It's the opposite of the social exchange theory. The next one is just or right. Now, this word is connected with the idea of righteousness, and it's not just legal correctness, but it's an alignment with God's own nature. Just, upright, and it's what's approved by God. And to think on what is right is to calibrate your conscience against something besides human appetite or human reasoning. It's abandoning rationales and justifications and even walking away from the good to embrace what is God. Moving on to the final one we'll talk about today, we have pure. And pure is the filter. Now, this is not about being pure like being perfect or the purity culture movement of the past. Instead, it's the idea of junk in and junk out, that the effectiveness is determined by the quality of what is put in. So you get a return on your investment, or what you sow is what you reap. Purity is more than clean. It's a standard that acts similar to a water filter to remove what is untrue or what can't measure up, where only authentic value and clarity will remain. Now, remember that in the New Testament, the concept of perfect is completion or being made complete. And so this does point again to a process in our relationship with God. It's a filtering practice rather than a personal attribute or aspirational quality. To think on what is pure is to guard your inner world, to resist the temptation to dwell on what is distorted, cynical, or corrupt. just as consuming nutrients with higher purity also produces a higher quality outcome in health, the same is true of spiritual health. So, in review, truth and alignment with God, noble or honorable, tells us that we should be consistently principled, valuing what is important to God. Just or right is a conscience calibration, keeping God in the highest place, and pure tells us that we should be aware that we're in a process and that it's essential to only allow what meets the quality standard, so we'll produce the best spiritual fruit in our lives. And those are very important, like peace and hope. So when Paul says think on these things, he's not trying to say be positive. He's not in denial and encouraging happy thoughts or to just not think about it. And it's not manifesting that you're putting your energy out there to get what you want, but it's reminding us to supercharge the transformation process, not allowing the messages that surround us to derail us from God's best. Join us next time and we'll explore the final four: lovely, commendable, or good report, excellent, and praiseworthy. You won't want to miss it.